Greetings and welcome to you to our daily Devo for Saturday the 15th of June today. Our devotion is entitled Tears. The Charles Dickens part of this comes from Great Expectations. Many are familiar with that one. And then, of course, the thoughts on that from Gene Fisher. Tears. I got up from the meal saying, well, I suppose I must be off. And then I kissed my sister and kissed Biddy and threw my arms around Joe's neck. I walked away at a good pace, thinking it was easier to go than I had supposed it would be. I whistled and made nothing of going. But the village was very peaceful and quiet, and the light mists were solemnly rising as if to show me the world. And I had been so innocent and little there. And all beyond was so unknown and great that in a moment, with a strong heave and sob, I broke into tears. I was by the finger post at the end of the village, and I laid my hand upon it and said, "Goodbye, oh my dear, dear friend." Heaven knows we need never be ashamed of our tears, for they are rain upon the blinding dust of earth, overlying our hard hearts. I was better after I had cried than before, more sorry, more aware of my own ingratitude, more gentle. So subdued I was by those tears and by their breaking out again in the course of the quiet walk, that when I was on the couch and it was clear of the town, and I was clear of the town, I deliberated with an aching heart whether I would not get down when we changed horses and walk back. And I have another evening at home, and a better parting. In Great Expectations, Dickens's character Pip reflects on a day in his adolescence when he left home for London. On that day, young Pip put aside his usual snobbish attitude, and he wept for the village and also the friends and family he left behind. Tears, he discovered, are nothing to be ashamed of. Jesus also wept over a city. He cried on Palm Sunday as he approached Jerusalem, knowing what terrible events would happen there, Luke 19:41. He wept when his friend Lazarus died, John 11:35. And he must have wept when he learned that his cousin, John the Baptist, had been murdered in Mark 6. We can imagine that Jesus often shed tears. The prophet Isaiah says that he was a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, speaking of Jesus in Isaiah 53:3. Certainly then, Jesus understands when we cry. God sees our tears, and he comforts us. The Bible tells us in Psalm 126, verse 5, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." God reminds us that our sadness will not last forever. One day he will wipe every tear from our eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. Revelation 21:4. Do you hold back your tears, or do you let them flow? There is no sin, there is no shame in crying. When we cry, we reflect a characteristic of our Lord Jesus Christ. Psalm 106, verse 44. "Nevertheless, he regarded their affliction when he heard their cry." I know in our day, especially here in the West, real men don't cry, and that's a bunch of baloney. That's a bunch of baloney. Was Jesus not a real man? Did he not carry the weight of the world on his shoulders? He cried over those whose lives were broken. He cried over those who faced hardship and difficulty. He cried for those who needed to know that he'd come to seek and to save the lost. He wept over Jerusalem because they didn't recognize who he was and what he'd come for. And we should weep over such things too. We should weep over the hardship of people in this world in which we live. We should weep over the brokenheartedness of those who've lost a loved one. We should weep over the loss of a loved one, just as Jesus did with Lazarus. Weeping for such things denotes that we have a compassionate heart. And compassion is something that is what our Lord has. And if we're going to be like him, we need to have it also. Blessings to you today. And be sensitive to what the Lord will take you through today. Be sensitive to the needs of those around you today. Again, blessings to you on this Saturday.